All right, with that part of the theory behind us, now that you have a clear idea about personal organization, information management, and knowledge management, we can finally dive into the main topic of this course, which is personal knowledge management. So, personal knowledge management, also called PKM, it's a mix of processes, habits, and tools. So again, I want to insist upon this. It's not only about the tools and the notes that you are going to take. It's about the whole spectrum of the processes, the habits, and the tools. The goal of PKM is to empower you as an individual by creating a system that you can use not only to explore, curate, consume information, but also to capture, distill the important part, organize the information efficiently in a way that allows you to leverage it, connect the ideas, and develop those. So it goes from inspiration and insights to ideas, concepts, and knowledge. And the goal is to be able to do this at scale, having a system that you can rely on. If you have such a system, then it will enable you to leverage your knowledge, which is very, very different to taking isolated notes on paper, in documents, emails, etc. Briefly put, it will help you to go from passively consuming information and forgetting everything or almost everything to learning more actively and making more sense of whatever you learn. So the knowledge that you will accumulate and the environment that you will have at your disposal will enable you to think more deeply, to introspect, and to accelerate your learning. So the scope of knowledge management goes from the selection of what you decide to consume to the wisdom that you develop. And as individuals, we all explore and learn, acquire knowledge, and develop wisdom. Unfortunately, our brains are limited. We cannot think deeply with the mind alone. Our short-term memory just doesn't support that. So we need external support to retain more and to think more deeply. And that's where PKM comes into the picture. This is just one representation of how data, information, knowledge, and wisdom relate. There's controversy about this particular visualization because it doesn't explain everything. It's just a mental model that you can think of. So at the base layer, you have the base data, the raw data of the world, things that we can observe. Information is what sits on top of that. So based on observations in the world, we know and we discover facts and relationships between things. This all put together leads to the knowledge, the things that we know about the world because we have verified those facts. And this further leads to wisdom because once you know about things, about the way the world works, about realities, about how to manage a project, how to develop a project, how to organize things, etc., there is wisdom to be learned. The thing is that to go from data to wisdom, and to retain the knowledge and wisdom in some way, we need a support system. The brain is not a good system for that, and so that's where PKM comes in. PKM is going to help you basically go from chaos to order. So whatever information you come across, whatever knowledge you discover, whatever wisdom other people share and you learn about, you will have a system that you can use to reliably store and retrieve that information. It's really about going from what you see on the left, just a bag of ideas, facts, and things, a big mess, to a more connected view and more solid mental models of the knowledge and the facts and the data. And basically, that's what we are going to do with a PKM system and more. So with a PKM system, you will be able to learn faster, think more deeply because you have all of the information at your disposal. In the same way, you will be able to be more creative because for as long as you have captured insights and inspiration and your own creations, then you will have more and more data points and reference points that you can come back to explore and use in your different projects. For decision making, it's going to help you because you will have facts that you can go back to, information that you can check and that you can use to make better decisions. So if you know and if recorded your past mistakes, then you can go back to the list of past mistakes and avoid making those again. You will be able to work smarter because it will give you ways to better organize yourself. And consequently, you will also be more productive because once you can get better organized, then you can be more productive. More importantly, it will enable you to actually leverage your knowledge. So this is my knowledge graph, and it's actually something that a knowledge management tool can help you create. And not only the tool, but actually the whole system. So going from all the information you consume, the things you learned, your own insights, the things you think, connecting everything and storing everything together in one location. So what you see here is my own knowledge graph in a PKM system. This is just a visualization of all the facts, the ideas, the wisdom, the knowledge that you have collected and connected. That's why it's a graph, because all the ideas, the nodes, let's say, can be connected to one another. And that's where the real wisdom can come from and where the exploration can occur. Having such a knowledge graph means that you have a set of ideas and facts that you can go back to. And since you have connections between those, you can go from one to the next, explore and reuse the things that you have collected. So it's important to not fall into the trap of collecting too much, because that's not the goal, but it's about collecting what makes sense and what is actionable, what is useful to you. And the nice thing about it, again, is that the system will be more reliable than your brain. So what you see here, that knowledge graph, it could maybe all fit in my brain because we have billions of neurons actually. And so we have ways to store a ton of information in our brains. But I would not be able to retrieve it so easily. And that's the nice thing about digital solutions, is that we can go much further. We can store knowledge much more safely, and we can retrieve what we need when we need it. And the more you can forget, the better. And that's the nice thing about personal knowledge management. It just enables forgetting at scale and forgetting on purpose. And that's what you want. I know it's still quite abstract at this point, but we are going to make it a bit more concrete in a minute. Okay, let's now try to go away from theory and into practice. And before we go any further, let me show you what the core of my own personal knowledge management system looks like. Since the beginning of the course, you're actually viewing nodes that sit inside of my system. All of the content that you've seen so far is stored and organized in Obsidian. That's the tool that I use for note-taking and knowledge management. Just a part of my whole system, but it's the most important one because that's where I regroup all the information. It's known as a tool for thoughts. So it's a tool for managing nodes and knowledge. So it's not just an information management tool, but it's actually a tool that you can use to think and organize information. I've been using it for the last few years. I've actually created the Obsidian Starter Kit, which is basically a solid starting point for taking notes with Obsidian, organizing those and leveraging those. And on top of that, I have also created a course specifically about Obsidian, showing how I organize my notes and how it works. But in this course, since this is my tool of choice, that's also the one that I'm going to use to support the course and show you things in practice. So at its core, Obsidian is all about taking textual notes and connecting those to each other, but it also supports visualizations. So now I'm going to get out of the presentation mode and show you some things inside of that. As you can see here on the left, I have a file browser, let's say, so that's where you can see how I organize my notes. And for instance, the ones that you see now, these are the slides of this part of the course, are stored in my projects, in a project called Knowledge Management for Beginners. And we are inside of the second module at this point, looking at the introduction for PKM. As you can see, the information here is all centralized. So I did not create those slides externally. It's all part of my knowledge management system. And now I'm going to show you a few of the notes. As you can see, there is a clear organization structure. So I have my projects here. I have different areas that we can look at later. I have my journal with daily, weekly, monthly notes, etc. That's where I can record information easily. I have resources with many images, videos, audio, etc. and more. There's actually a clear organization structure. It's something that I will cover in this course because I want you to have a solid starting point. I want to give you solid insights about how you can get started without making things too complicated. But what's important to consider is that it's not just about folders and organizations. It's about ideas and how you can connect those together. So if we take a look, for instance, at some of my personal notes, you can see here that within this areas part, I have permanent notes. We will discuss that later, but you can see that it contains many, many notes. Some are stupid and very small and very short, but that's not the point. The point is that each node contains text, and the text can contain links. And those links are the connections. So on the graph that you saw earlier, I showed you that the IDs were connected to each other. And with Obsidian, this is the way it works. It's based on text. So whenever you see blue links like this, these are actual links between different nodes. So if I click on this one now, I'm going to see the next one. And that's where it gets interesting, because you can store ideas about a certain topic. So in this case, it's a note about how to fight against decision fatigue. You can see that this note has different tags to describe it. There is the text. There are tips that I've stored there, how to make decisions effortless, how to remove noise from your life, things like that. And basically, it's information that I've collected, knowledge that I've connected, wisdom that I've collected, or inspiration. And most importantly, you can create links between your nodes. So in this case, you can see that I have a link from this note about how to fight against decision fatigue to another note about decision fatigue. So it's a more general concept. And also another link about decision-making power. What's interesting, and it's not unique to Obsidian, it's the fact that you can see a graph of those connections. So if I enable this here, you can see that this node is connected to all of those. So there is a time aspect. That's something that I will discuss later in the course, but also links, as I mentioned, to other nodes in the system. If I now go to the one about decision-making power, you can see that this local graph, as it's called, has been updated, and I now see the links of this new node. And that's one way that you can navigate between the nodes in your system. But as you saw earlier, there is actually a larger knowledge graph, because all of the links between all of the nodes in the whole system can be represented as a graph. So this is the knowledge graph behind my vault. So all of the files that you see here in my own system, so there are, I don't know, 10,000 or something like that, are connected to each other and can be visualized using this graph. So at this point, mine is becoming slowly useless in the sense that there's just too much on it. When you have 10,000 nodes, it can be quite slow. But that's not the point. What really is important is what I showed you earlier, the fact that between the nodes in your system, you can have links. And this is just one visualization that shows you, in this case, everything. But you can see that there are clusters. So for instance, everything that I have written down about knowledge management in my system, I can access easily. So if I click on this one, then I fall upon a node called PKM, where I have many notes on the topic. There are things that I will actually cover in this course, like the file framework, the lift principle, and things like that. And as you can see, everything is in there. And if I need to find something, I can just search for what I need. So for instance, if I'm looking for notes about knowledge management and discussing naming of things, then I can quickly find the things that relate to that. So for instance, the ways to locate nodes in a system. And that's actually what I'm discussing right now. So this is just a short demo, but my goal was just to show you that within the tool for thought, you can store a ton of information, because I do actually have a ton of information in here that pertains to many areas of my life. So my interests, personal interests, my personal projects, work projects, things I'm working on, ideas I have about parenting, about productivity, personal organization, and many more things. And it's all centralized in there, and I can connect all of those ideas together. Again, I want to consider that this is one part of my system. It's where my notes, my ideas, and all of those things end up. But it's just a part of the system, because before things get into there, I need to collect those, to consume those, to explore. to actually take the notes, etc. Sometimes I take notes on paper. I need to transition those to this tool before I can connect the ideas. These are things that we will explore together, but I wanted to show you a bit concretely what I mean by all this. So these are notes that I store. There are also visualizations. So with Obsidian, you can create canvases like this one that can help you visualize ideas and concepts. And what I want you to consider is that even though, again, I just keep repeating the same thing. I sound like a broken record at this point, I guess. But those are not things I could memorize. I mean, I could memorize a part of this, but not all this. And that's the useful thing about it, is that now that I have this system in which I store everything, I can come back to it at any point and search for what I need when I need it. So if I'm working on this course, for instance, I can go back to my system at any time and, okay, I want to discuss this part of PKM, then I can search for this or for that, and I will find the information back. If I just want to use my memory, I will not be able to do the same. Same thing if I want to search things about decision making, for instance, I can quickly find whatever I need. If I'm looking for FOMO, fear of missing out, there it is. I don't have to think for too long about it. I can find the information quickly and efficiently. And that's actually what I want to help you create for yourself. So beyond just organizing information, knowledge, and connecting things together, what you can also do in such a tool is store a journal. Journaling is something that is near and dear to my heart, and that's something that I will cover in the course because I think that it has value, not only at a personal level, but also at a professional level. And actually, you can use Obsidian and similar tools to create a journal where you can keep track of what is happening on a daily basis, what has happened in a given week, in a given month, in a given quarter, etc. Journaling is something that you can use to look back more objectively on the past. So know what went well, what didn't, what happened, what you thought about the events, what you are grateful for. But it's also something that you can use to look forward. So you can make plans for the future. So you can create a plan for the next week, for the next month, for the next year, just for the next day also. And actually, a knowledge management tool such as Obsidian really supports this. Just consider that this is information that I could not store in my brain, or I do not want to store it in my brain. So, all right. With this out of the way, so now you have a more concrete view of how it looks in practice. We will come back to this and look at it more in detail later. Let's go back to the theory for just a minute.